So you have started driving a manual car, and it's always stressful and nervous when you're just starting out. We've all been there, I've been there as well, and I am actually still learning how to drive a manual transmission car myself. But over some hours of practicing on my own, I've developed some tricks and tips for you to become less nervous when you're driving a manual car. Just to get it out of the way, driving a manual car is a nice skill. When you get everything right, it just feels so good. But it takes hours and hours of practice to get it just right. So if you ever feel frustrated when you're driving a manual car and you try to be as good as possible, today we'll try to fix it. And I will get started with the driving position. It is actually hard to drive a manual car if you don't have a proper driving position. And the first thing you need to do is to set up your seat horizontally, so every time you press the clutch in, you have a slight bend in your knee and you don't stretch your leg as much. It should be very comfortable. So at least for me, when I'm driving an automatic car, I'm sitting further away from the steering wheel as opposed to a manual car. It is something to get used to, and then you just make sure that you can touch the gas pedal and the brake pedal comfortably as well. And then the last thing you want to do is to configure the steering wheel position. In my view, you should put it close to you so you have a slight bend right here, and then you'll have a perfect position for perfect control of the wheel. And only after you've done that, we can turn on the engine. And the second thing you need to do is to find a place where you can practice. So usually I find places like this. This is kind of a business park. So if you choose to go on a weekend or even on the weekday after 5 p.m., this place is gonna be empty, which is a perfect place for us to practice our manual driving. So after you set up your driving seat, just find a place like this so you know you will not be endangering any other driver. The great thing about these places is that you can stop somewhere like here. And the first exercise that you would like to do is to actually get a great feel of the bite point on your clutch pedal. So try to find a flat surface first. As you can see, this car actually shows the angle, which means we're on a flat surface. But to make sure on your own without this technology, just put yourself in neutral, take the right foot off the gas pedal and off the brake pedal, and you see that we're not moving. So what we want to do is to actually get going in the first gear without giving any gas. So what do we need to do? We put our left leg all the way in to the clutch pedal. We select the first gear, and we're slowly depressing the clutch until we are at the bite point, and we want to get the car moving in first gear without putting any gas. As you can see, I haven't touched the gas pedal with my right foot, and we are successfully moving in the first gear. And then to stop, just press the clutch again and brake. We put ourselves back in neutral, and now we can rest the left leg. So we'll need to repeat this exercise as many times as needed so you can start moving every single time in first gear without giving it any gas. That's how you know you will be proficient. Just like this. So if you can do this 5 or 10 times in a row, that will mean that you have mastered the bite point feel. Awesome. So after you've done this, you're probably wondering, yes, I'm moving, that's pretty great, but what if I want to move just a little faster? What we need to do, again, put ourselves in the first gear, and then while you are depressing the clutch pedal, we are adding just a little bit of gas, around 1500 RPM. And as you can see, we're moving a little bit quicker. Sometimes we have traffic lights. You probably want to move a little bit faster than going in the first gear without giving it any gas. So for example, in this case, I just gave a little bit of gas, and we have set off pretty smoothly and relatively quickly, which is what we want to do. The next thing we want to practice is clutch control at slow speeds. Let's say we want to parallel park, or let's say you're sitting on the red light behind some car. You want to get closer to them, but you don't want to hit them hard from the back. And to do that, we need to master the clutch control of moving our car close to the car in front of us or the object in front of us by engaging and disengaging the clutch. So I'm moving closer. Now I'll disengage my clutch. And now I moved very slowly to the back end of this car. And you do the same thing in reverse. You see, if I want to go slower, I disengage. If I want to go faster, I engage the buy point. So you need to do that also lots of times until you can do that every single time with no problem. You will need to master this skill because every time you go for a drive, you'll probably end up parking somewhere, or you will end up on the traffic light or stop sign behind someone else, and you'll probably need to creep very slowly. And to do that, we need to disengage and engage the clutch just as I showed you. Let me quickly find a place where we can parallel park, and I can demonstrate to you how to do it once again. Alright, let's parallel park right here. Let's say we want to get closer to that Jaguar. Engage and disengage the clutch in first gear to move any closer. Just like this. And yeah, now we are done. So let's get out of this parking space again by showing how to engage and disengage the clutch when you are maneuvering in tight spaces. So we got close to the car behind us. First gear. And here we go. The hardest parts of driving a manual transmission car is getting going in first gear and then switching up the second gear. So, as I showed you before, to get going in first gear, you give it a little bit of gas, hold your left foot at the bike point for some time, engage that clutch, start rolling, and then when you get to 2500 RPM, so this turn, right, 2500 RPM, clutch all the way in, second gear, hold your left foot at the buy point again for a couple of seconds. If you won't hold the clutch pedal at the buy point for a couple of seconds when you're switching up to the second gear, you'll get a lurch. So let's do it again. We're going left on this intersection, checking left and right, first gear, give it a little bit of gas, clutch all the way in, select second gear, hold the clutch pedal at the buy point, and now we're rolling. But then when you get to the third gear, you don't need to hold the clutch pedal at the buy point as long as for the second gear or the first gear. So it gets easier when it goes to fourth, fifth, and so on. So now we're switching to fourth. I don't need to hold it as long there. So you want to practice getting into the first gear and then second gear longer because you need to get this timing right of holding the clutch pedal at the buy point for a certain amount of time. One thing I wanted to talk about before we get to the hills, where we're going to practice hill starts, is that if you are nervous that people behind you are going to honk at you and you're going to be stressful that you are holding people off on the red light or in a stop sign because you take long to engage the clutch and get into the first gear and get going, the best thing you can do is to actually be extra observant and plan ahead. For example, we are approaching this red light over here. We are in neutral, we're stopping, and now I'm gonna look for the light over there. Now it's green, but when it's gonna turn yellow right now, I'm gonna go into the first gear, and get ready. And perfect timing. People behind me, if there were people behind me, wouldn't be mad at me because I planned ahead. And always remember that you don't need to be stressed out if you fail, if you stall out. That's okay. People behind you are gonna honk, and it's fine. Don't worry about them. You are practicing. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just some impatient people thinking that you are bad at driving, but it doesn't matter because you are trying to get better. Just focus on getting better. So now we are on a slight incline. How do we know about this? If I'm in neutral and take my foot off the brake pedal, I'm gonna start rolling down. So what we want to do if people are behind us and we don't want to roll down into them, the first option you have is the handbrake. You pull it up and keeping the thumb on the button so then it's flexible. So we are going to use the handbrake instead of our foot brake. So if I hold it like this and release the brake pedal, I'm not moving. And now we can focus on getting going. Put the clutch in, get into the first gear, and then slowly get into the 5-point, give it a little bit of gas, and when you feel like the car wants to move forward, you release the handbrake. Let me show it once again to you. So, neutral. Again, we're gonna roll down. Yeah, we're rolling down. All right, we are in neutral. First gear. Pull up your handbrake, foot off the brake. Now start to slowly build up the revs. Get to the buy point, and when you feel like the car wants to move forward, we just release the handbrake. And here you go. And the second method involves the hill start assist, which is existing in some of the newer cars. And I'm gonna demonstrate to you how you can utilize it. So we go into the first gear. To engage the hill assist, you have to be on the brake with your right foot. You start pulling the clutch pedal up to the buy point, and when you're close to the buy point, you release the foot brake, and then you start putting some gas into it, like this. That way you don't need to use your e-brake, and you're still not rolling down onto the traffic behind you. And I think it is much easier method than the first one. You just need to move less. You don't need to put the handbrake on. You just use your two legs, and that's it. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is Rev-Match Downshifting. So when you want to downshift, you have two options. So the first option when you're downshifting is to use the clutch to rev match for us. So let's say we are in 4th gear and we want to go into 3rd gear. Clutch in, select 3rd gear, hold the clutch pedal at the buy point, and the revs are going to go up by themselves. By doing that, we put lots of pressure on our clutch, and it's going to play badly on its longevity. So to avoid our clutch overworking every time you downshift, we can do a rev-match downshift. So let's say I want to go into 3rd gear again. What I will do, clutch in, and I just use a blip to rev-match the downshift by myself without putting all this pressure on the clutch. Notice how my right foot is blipping the throttle. All right, let me demonstrate it to you again. We are in 4th gear. We want to go into 3rd and rev match it on our own. Notice how my right foot is blipping the throttle. So now, when I release my clutch, it didn't need to do any work to rev match the downshift. All right, the advantage is that you are prolonging the life of your clutch, which is good. And the second part is that it's just more fun. You can also rev match into second if you want. To get more power and get going. It just makes driving experience more engaging and fun. So don't be discouraged too much when you just do it on your first or second run, because you're gonna get eventually better. It's just the fact that every single gear has a different ratio, and every single time you are downshifting from fourth to third or from third to second, it's gonna take you a different amount of blip. So you'll have to memorize it and put it into your muscle memory. Like whenever I just go on a straight line like this, I just like going from fourth to third. It's just so fun. And that is why I'm telling you guys, driving a manual is such an enjoyment, because you are always in charge of changing gears. You're always in charge of how fast you're going, how smooth you're going, and you are constantly making decisions in your head. There's something about additional dimension of engagement. All of your four limbs are working again at the same time. Your right hand is responsible for changing the gears using the shifter. Your left foot is on the clutch pedal. Your right foot is responsible for braking and accelerating. And your left hand is a dominant hand when it comes to steering. It's really good for the brain. It is also, I think, in my opinion, safer to drive a manual car. I find myself being less distracted, being more focused on driving correctly when I'm driving a manual car. And I also find myself giggling more and just having a smile on my face. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that don't try to overthink what you're doing when you're driving a manual. Don't try to imagine the bad scenario. I would feel nervous of hitting the car behind me and just, people getting stressed about me not going while they're waiting. So I was imagining every single time how I would stall or I would not be able to not roll down while performing a hill start. And this is what ended up happening, because I was putting this bad scenario in my head. Actually, try to think of a positive outcome. Try to think of you successfully performing a hill start. And whenever I started doing this, it actually all went away. All this fear went away. Don't try to overthink all of the actions you do while you are driving a manual car. If you know all the theory, if you did all the practice, just stop imagining bad things to happen and everything will be okay. Hopefully you will find driving a manual car just as fun and enjoyable as I do after practicing all the things I showed in this video. And if you're curious about this car I'm driving, the 2025 WRX TS, watch this video. And if you want to learn more about driving, check out my catalog on my YouTube channel with lots of educational videos out there. And as always, stay safe out there, keep enjoying the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.